Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into Iraq, specifically its institutions and political challenges since 2003. Our sources really emphasize this idea of Iraq as a kind of microcosm of the whole Middle East, all the big regional dynamics packed into one state.
That's right. And what's really striking is how things have evolved, especially after the main fight against ISIS wound down. The focus now, according to our research, isn't so much the old external conflicts, but this intense internal struggle, particularly within the major blocs.
Internal struggle, so less about Sunni versus Shia or Kurd versus Arab and more within those groups.
Exactly. The defining contestation shaping the government, shaping the future, it's unprecedentedly intra-Shia right now.
Wow, that changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? The old narratives maybe don't fit anymore, so these groups now have to compete on, well, actual governance, state delivery.
Precisely. And this brings us to these competing visions for what they call state reinforcement, especially around the 2021 elections. There were really distinct ideas clashing.
Okay, let's unpack those. Who were the main players and what were their visions?
Well, you had former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. His pitch was basically the classic strongman model, arguing Iraq needs a powerful, centralized figure to build a strong state.
The strongman idea.
Then, completely differently, you had Muqtada al-Sadr. He was pushing, leveraging his huge popular base and these cross-sectarian protest movements for strong institutions, independent, technocrat-led.
That's almost the polar opposite. Strong institutions versus a strong leader.
Pretty much. And it's interesting you mentioned Maliki.
Yeah, wait a second. Maliki pushing the strongman idea. Isn't that kind of ironic?
Yeah.
Given the history, the whole system collapsed in 2003, partly because of over-centralization, didn't it? And wasn't he originally put in place back in, 2006? Specifically because he was seen as a weak compromise?
That's exactly the point many observers make. He was supposed to be weak, but then spent years consolidating power. It highlights this central dilemma in Iraq. How much control is needed just to hold things together?
Right. And there was a third figure, too.
Yes, the incumbent PM at the time, Haider al-Abadi. His approach was maybe more gradual, focused on regaining state power, especially by trying to get control over the security sector, professionalize it.
Okay, so three distinct approaches.
Right.
But underlying all this political maneuvering, there's a deeper problem, right? The state itself, its capacity.
Absolutely. This is critical. The post-2003 collapse wasn't just political, it was institutional. The state's ability to actually do things, its coercive power, its basic functions, they crumbled. And that leads to huge popular resentment. People see a government, but they don't see it working.
And a big part of why it doesn't work is corruption.
A massive part. One source actually calls the government's contracting process the father of all corruption issues in Iraq.
The father of all corruption. That's quite a statement. How does that specific process work, or rather, fail?
It's fundamentally about elite protection. Contracts, often huge ones, get awarded to companies with direct ties to senior politicians.
Ah, okay. Cronyism.
Exactly. And then if these companies do shoddy work, or sometimes no work at all, which happens a lot, well, they're shielded. The same political patrons who got them the contract make sure there's no real accountability. So the cycle just continues.
It sounds like it's just baked into the system, this fragmentation, this weakness. It's not new, is it? Does the history shed light on this?
It definitely does. Our sources trace these issues way back. Even the early state building had, let's say, structural weaknesses. Think about the 1936 military coup. It removed the old Ottoman elite, sure, but the leadership that took over wasn't really unified, didn't have that strong, cohesive nationalist vision.
And this connects to the sectarian issues too, right? How the early state narrative was formed.
Yes. Early Iraqi nationalism, especially influenced by thinkers like Sati al-Husri, who is very pan-Arabist, tended to downplay or even ignore the role of Shia communities, things like their major role in the 1920 revolt against the British. That kind of historical narrative, reducing their significance, it bred long-term mistrust in the state itself.
You can see the echoes today. So this deep history, the current rivalries, the institutional weakness, it leads to a really tough question about outside help, doesn't it? Intervention.
It poses a profound theoretical challenge. The argument goes that external intervention, even when it's meant to, stop violence, save lives, it might actually get in the way of state building.
How so? By stopping the violence.
Sort of. It potentially interferes with the messy, often quite harsh process through which a central authority might normally consolidate power. That necessary, sometimes violent path to what academics call empirical statehood.
Empirical statehood. What does that mean in simple terms?
It means the state actually works. It controls its territory. It has a monopoly on the use of force. Its laws and policies are effective everywhere. It doesn't need outside protection or rely on militias.
So intervention can inadvertently prop up a weak state, preventing it from ever becoming truly strong on its own.
That's the dilemma. It can freeze conflicts, maybe, but also freeze the state in a condition of weakness and dependency.
Okay, so Iraq's path is incredibly complex, contested internally, shaped by deep history, complicated by external factors, and plagued by these systemic failures like corruption.
And when you look at those competing visions we talked about, the strongman versus institutional reform, and you layer on the fact that, as many argue, the root causes that allowed ISIS to rise were never really fixed.
It leaves us with a really fundamental question for you, the listener, to consider. In a place defined by such deep internal rivalry and historical fractures, what kind of foundation offers the best hope for long-term stability? Is it about forging a shared identity first or building solid, trustworthy institutions? Or is it somehow both, and how?